to the home of creativity coaching on YouTube. My name is Omar, I'm a creativity coach and artist, and today I'd like to review the book Turning Pro by Pressfield. You may know Steven Pressfield as the best-selling author of The War of Art. It's one of my favorite books. Whereas The War of Art was arranged around this concept of resistance and how to overcome it, Turning Pro covers much of the same ground, but it uses this idea of the amateur and the professional. So the book is organized around four main areas. First, he describes the qualities of the amateur. He then goes into how things change when you turn pro. He then goes into the qualities of the pro. And then a final really cool section is about the practice. So let's look at the amateur, the kind of default mindset of a creative person. The basic idea is that the amateur is a dilettante. They produce their work only when they feel like it, only when everything's okay, when they're inspired. He then goes into this really interesting exploration of what he calls shadow lives. So according to him, we can be living a shadow life if somehow our artistic calling has been sublimated into something else. So for example, he talks about a literature PhD who deep down wants to be a writer, or the guy who's living the kind of wild rock and roll lifestyle with the drugs and the drink, but isn't actually making any music. Then he goes into an examination of the qualities or the habits of the amateur. He says the pro has habits and the amateur has habits, but just the pro has pro habits and the amateur has amateur habits. So, firstly, the amateur is governed primarily by fear. The amateur is terrified. He's terrified of failure, terrified of success, terrified of standing out from other people, terrified of being looked down upon or seen as strange by the group, by the tribe. The amateur is also egotistical. There's an element of narcissism there. They crave the validation of other people. They see the world hierarchically, and success is a zero-sum game. When the amateur star rises, he feels inflated and proud of himself. When it falls, he feels dejected, low self-worth. But ultimately, he sees himself at the center of the world and also at the center of everyone else's world. The amateur is easily distracted. It doesn't take much to make him lose his focus on his work and just kind of pack it in for the day. The amateur seeks permission. They can't just go and do what they know they should do. They have to go to some educational establishment. They have to pass a course by some expert or master instead of just giving themselves permission to just do it. And the last one is a lack of self-compassion. When the amateur looks at themselves in the mirror, knowing that they haven't been doing their work, they feel this kind of self-hatred, but there's no empathy to go along with that. And Pressfield says that once you can start having empathy for that person in the mirror who's repeatedly not doing the work, then you're starting on the road to turning pro. So how do things change when you turn pro? Well, your life changes pretty fundamentally. According to Pressfield, you're no longer governed by fear. You're not running away from your fears anymore. You're facing them head on and trying to overcome them. Your day-to-day life becomes a lot more simple. You structure your days simply around getting the work done and overcoming those obstacles, those fears that held you back when you were an amateur. The people in your life also change. When you turn pro, he says that people who are still running away from their fears, they kind of just get repelled by this kind of inverted magnetic force. They just don't want to be around you that much anymore, and you might not want to be around them. Or they might actually try and unconsciously sabotage you. But quote, at the same time, new people will appear in your life. They will be people who are facing their own fears and who are conquering them. These people will become our new friends. He does say that it's not easy to leave the old life. You're going to have to say goodbye to your comfort zone, and there'll likely be some painful decisions you have to make. So now let's talk about what the habits and the qualities of a pro are. The author lists, I think, over 20 different habits and qualities of the pro, but here are some of my favorites. Number 1, the pro shows up every day. 2, the pro is committed over the long haul. Number 3, the stakes are real and high for the pro. Number 4, the pro acts in the face of fear. Number 5, the pro is prepared. Number 6, the pro doesn't show off. Number 7, the pro doesn't hesitate to ask for help. 8, the pro reinvents himself. 9, the pro doesn't wait for inspiration before he acts. He acts in anticipation of inspiration, knowing that it will come. 10, the pro is dedicated to mastery. And 11, the pro has a practice, your daily practice. This is a really beautiful section that he finishes off the book with. He speaks of approaching your daily practice as you would approach a ritual. Let's say you have a yoga practice or a meditation practice. You're doing it in order to improve and to get better, but also there's an element of getting in touch with something greater than yourself, element of seeking transcendence. And he encourages us to have that same attitude. We come to it with reverence. I mean, he actually says, take off your shoes and bow. The daily practice should have its own space and its own time. So if you look at the space where an artist works, it's usually not chaotic, it's usually ordered. It's beautiful. You can see the dedication that happens there on a day-to-day basis. You can feel the energy there. Everything is ordered in such a way that expression can happen as fluidly as possible. It should have its own time as well. He paints this beautiful picture of these monks filing into a temple early in the morning for the morning prayers. There's a beautiful quote: "When we convene day upon day in the same space at the same time, a powerful energy builds up around us. This is the energy of our intention, of our dedication, of our commitment. The goddess sees this energy and rewards it." So in closing, I just want to say that I love this book. Steven Pressfield, to me, is like a wise elder. He's a battle-hardened veteran. He's faced his demons and he's overcome them. He just seems like a lovely guy as well. If you see any interviews with him, he's very warm and humble and self-effacing. I also love the voice and the tone of this book. It seems like, very no-nonsense, drill sergeant, straight talk. But at the same time, it's also got humor. It's got this kind of black humor and warmth to it. It's coming from a place of love. He's drawing inspiration from ancient wisdom, ancient Greece actually in this case, which is fascinating. It's also a really quick read. It's just over 100 pages, I think. I read the whole book while taking detailed notes in about 4 hours. So if you're just reading it cover to cover, I'd say you could read it in an hour or two maximum. And it's one of those things you're going to keep coming back to. He wrote The War of Art, then he wrote Do the Work, now he's written Turning Pro. It's a kind of trilogy of these kind of books. And you might think, well, why do I need to read this if I've read The War of Art? Well, I would say this is all timeless wisdom. We need to read this, we need to reread this. The War of Art is one of those books I reread at least once a year, and this is going to be the same. So this has been my review of Turning Pro by Steven Pressfield. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.